All right, we are live today. We're talking about the Senate committee. So when we talked yesterday, right, we talked about okay, the Senate's meeting today to figure out what is their spending because the appropriations process that's what's going to determine where your discretionary spend is, especially when it comes to HUD, right? HUD funding, which also includes, let's see, HUD state field offices, nothing here. So what I would do is based on last time, right? This is great. When you have such a heavy text document, what I like to do is figure out, okay, let's talk about what was previously thought about, right? So now I can compound on top of what we were previously talking about. So now I can say, hey, look, you are now looking at the Senate process. You need to compare what the Senate amendments are that might have implication on funding for HUD. And based on those implications or those markups, what is the implication for different investors, right? So I want to quickly see, hey, if there are any problems, what and where might the issues pop up from? So this is what we're going to do. So I had to summarize it, right? And let's see, Section 8 and project-based rental assistance, no direct funding cuts approach. So the Senate and the House essentially agreed to not cut as much as what was proposed in the White House budget. So this means, hey, things are they're going to be stable, but again, there's no increase in the rent cap. So that will probably mean that, again, don't underwrite with rent increases in your pro forma. That's at least my opinion. Again, it's not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. I'm just simply sharing with you how I interpret information and how I'm reacting. Again, don't take it, right? I might be completely wrong, and it might depend on the market because you might have certain markets or certain housing authorities where they are going to prioritize getting additional funding for housing choice vouchers, which is now the new name for what was previously known as Section 8 vouchers. So let's see the home program. Okay, so home funds are all gone. So if you rely on home funds to cover any of the gap financing in your capital stack, it's gone. So don't rely on that. Let's see. LIHTC insurance costs, new directive. HUD must produce a report on how rising insurance costs are affecting LIHTC and rent assisted properties. Ooh, this is new. This is new. So this is good. So if HUD has to produce a report, right, this is huge because if you're in certain areas, let's call it Texas, or you are in Florida, we've seen, and I've talked to developers where insurance expenses went up by like 200, 300%, and no one ever underwrites those expenses. Oh, wait, I didn't share my screen. I'm sorry. Let me share my screen. Let me share with you what I'm doing. There we go. So this is the table I'm referring to. I apologize. That took a while. So this tells you just exactly what's going on. So the LIHTC insurance implication, again, we talked about Section 8. Nothing changed from the House version, so that's great. That's a big relief. For LIHTC, if HUD has to produce a report, and seems educational, honestly, but if you are ever an owner of a property where insurance rates has doubled or tripled, that could essentially erode all your cash flow. And when you can't increase your rents, right? Because now there's rent caps now for the rent subsidies there. You could be in a really bad position where you're losing money every single month. And that is bad. So there's tons of properties, even though the Sun Belt was so popular, even though the Sun Belt was so popular, people are still getting issues because they're losing money because nobody underwrote with a 200% increase in their insurance premiums. All right, let's see. Red tape in housing adds 10 million to reduce barriers in housing production from 50 million to 60 million. So they got a little bit more money to reduce barriers. So hopefully this helps with streamlining permitting and development barriers. Hopefully this helps with that piece. Okay, FHA multifamily. Government Administrative Office must study underutilization and recommend properties, mainly to easier financing or reforms for multifamily. Hopefully this leads to easier financing because if you ever talked about and learn about the HUD loans, right? Hopefully this helps them understand that sometimes your con of the HUD loan is that it takes a really long time for it to get approved. If they can streamline this process, then maybe more people would want to finance a construction with HUD loans. All right. So, institutional investment study, study on institutional investors in single family housing. I don't think there's that many institutional investors in single family housing. It's not. All right, just watch it out. HUD and 60-70 React score properties. So these are probably on the lower scores. So they probably want to pay a lot more attention to properties where they have a lower React score. So if you have a lower React score, then they're going to require you to get your property up, and no rent bump expected. Great. So don't expect any rent increases. Program remains intact. Okay. So nothing's happening in Section 8. Do not project rent growth. Great. Expect more competition for soft funds like CDBG or state resources. Yep. Senate's new amendment directing how to analyze this as the first federal knowledge of the issue. Yeah, huge issue. Right. So I didn't even read this part. I was looking at this part and I knew right away what the implications were. 10 million to reduce red tape is modest but symbolic. They want to offer grants to cut permitting delays. Oh, interesting. I wonder how we can get certain grants. I don't know if that study is going to do anything, but hopefully we can help with that study. Watch for HUD pilot programs on red tape. All right, cool. I mean, that's it. Pretty straightforward. Overall, decent news that Section 8 is not getting cut. Again, there is a rent cap, so be very mindful about how you underwrite. Even if you're a multifamily investor, sometimes people like to put in like a 2% rent growth. I will put 0% rent growth, to be quite honest with you. It's just not realistic to expect revenue growth right now. All right. So have an amazing night, everybody. I hope this was helpful. My goal is to try to keep you updated on everything that's going on. Hopefully this is the end of all the politics behind whether or not we're going to get rental cuts or budget cuts to Section 8, and we can go from there. All right. I'll keep you updated as soon as I hear anything. And this is why you listen to the best podcast on affordable housing investments. All right. Have an amazing night. I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good one, everybody.